Join the coven. I think I accidentally joined a cult. Part 2. Written by the Globetrotter. I pulled my car into the parking lot of the warehouse earlier this morning. My eyes scanned the lot for a few moments, taking in my surroundings. There were probably a dozen cars in the lot today, far more than there had been the day before. I stepped out of the car, habitually brushing off my pant legs. Anxiety had been pumping through me the entire morning. Lily had already woken up when I had sat up in bed a few hours earlier. She had been ecstatic to hear that I finally found a job at all, let alone one that paid so much. Thankfully, she hadn't really seemed curious about what exactly it was I did at David's warehouse. I'm not sure what I would have told her. I stepped up to the front door, recognizing David's own parked car in front of it. I exhaled slowly, collecting myself before stepping inside. I immediately noticed a man stepping out of the door near the back of the warehouse, shutting it quickly behind him. The man walked briskly toward the office in the back corner, a large yellow envelope in his hand. "Tom!" a familiar voice called from my right. Henry began to walk towards me, a smile on his face. "Glad to see you can make it. I was starting to think you weren't going to show." I chuckled, looking around the warehouse. The number of packages that lined the shelves still amazed me. And miss out on the paycheck? No way, man. Henry laughed. "You've got a point," he said, pointing towards the back wall where the door sat. "What do you think is back there?" I shrugged. "Probably some storage area." Henry nodded. "It's hard for me to picture any more boxes fitting in this place." "You can say that again," I said, making sure no one was near me. "I just wish I knew what was in them." Henry sighed, starting to walk towards the office. "Don't worry about it, man. David wouldn't throw anything illegal at us." I followed closely behind my friend, looking down each aisle as we made our way towards the back of the warehouse. David exited the office just as the two of us reached the door. "Ah, you two are right on time." "Just happy to be here," I said, looking over my shoulder. I couldn't help but think I saw one of the other employees quickly avert his eyes from my direction. "I'm glad to hear it," Dave said, motioning for us to follow him. "I've got your first delivery ready now." Henry cleared his throat. "Which one of us is delivering this now?" David remained facing forward as he walked. "I decided that I would have the both of you deliver this one, just for your first time," he said, stopping in front of the shelves. "The man you're delivering to has always been a bit of a handful. Anyhow, he'll be easier to deal with if there's two of you." Henry simply nodded along, but I was no longer listening. I needed to know what kind of business this was. We made deliveries to regular customers. Something didn't feel right. I just didn't know what yet. I grunted. "What do you mean when you say he's a handful?" David looked over his shoulder, flashing me a smile. "Don't worry, Tom. You will do fine out there." I frowned, noting that David had not answered my question. David turned back to the shelf, reaching for one of the boxes. "You'll be bringing this to a man named Warren," he said. placing a yellow envelope on top of it, along with this. Henry and I nodded, my friend grabbing the packages from our new boss. Anything else we need to know? David looked to his watch before flashing us a smile. Well, I told Warren that we would have his packages delivered by 10 this morning. If I were you, I'd start moving. My car turned the corner, making its way towards Warren's house. Henry was in the passenger seat, his cell phone in one hand, the other wrapped around the packages. I hope this Warren guy is cool, I said, my eyes locked on the road. Henry grunted, wiping down his phone screen. I've dealt with people like him before. You're in good hands. I nodded, eyeing a pizza restaurant that I had forgot even existed. I glanced over to Henry, his eyes glued to his phone. What are you up to? Henry looked to me briefly. Oh, just reading up on the news. I nodded again, taking a left onto the next street. My GPS updated the directions. Anything new? Henry sighed, scratching his neck. Nothing too crazy, really, he said, scrolling back to the top of his phone. There's a little girl lost in Tennessee, I guess. News story. And some kids got attacked by alligators down in the Everglades. That's about it, really. I scoffed. Who'd be dumb enough to go out in the Everglades? Henry laughed. No idea, man. Nothing good can come from being out there. I glanced to the package in Henry's lap. What do you think that is? I asked once again. Henry chuckled. I still don't know, man, he said. Could be anything, really. I nodded, feeling my concerns beginning to surface again. It just all feels odd to me, man. Henry sighed, looking at the box. Do you want to just open it? I looked to him, confusion surely plastered across my face. What? Henry smirked. It wouldn't hurt. We've just got to seal it up back afterwards. I chewed on my lower lip. I don't know about that. Oh, come on, Tom, he said, pushing aside the yellow envelope. What's the worst that could happen? I groaned. All right, man. All right. Just open it, I said, looking quickly at the box. Just do it gently. I know, Henry said, slowly peeling off the tape that held the box shut. I listened to the tape tearing as I flipped on my turn signal. I looked back to Henry, his hand now in the box. Anything? I asked, returning my eyes to the road. Henry hummed lightly to himself. It's just a bunch of random crap, he said, lightly moving through the box. Some book, a couple of bags of snack food. I felt my anxiety begin to disappear. What is this, some kind of food delivery thing? Henry shrugged. I don't know. Maybe it's one of those apps? They're starting to become pretty popular. I nodded, feeling better now. I gestured towards Henry's lap. What's in the envelope? Henry picked up the envelope, peeling open the flap. He looked inside, gasping. Holy hell, dude! I looked to him. What is it? He reached his hand in, pulling out a black, rectangular piece of plastic. I think it's a freaking VHS tape. It was certainly a VHS tape. Jesus, I haven't seen one of those things in years. Henry nodded, looking back into the bag. That's it. Why would Warren need a VHS tape? I said, the anxiety returning stronger than before. Henry placed the tape back into the envelope. I really have no idea, he said, setting down the packages. Let's just get this stuff there and be done with it. I glanced to my phone. The directions warned that our destination was coming up on our right. Keep your eyes open, I said, checking the buildings on the side of the road. I have no idea what this guy's place looks like. Henry set his phone down. We've got some time left before 10, Tom. Don't worry. I grunted softly in agreement, slowing the car to a halt. The GPS announced our arrival at the destination. I frowned, looking past Henry through the window. We were now parked in front of a dilapidated building, the outside even more blank than David's business was. I checked my phone once again. Do you think this is the place? Henry looked to my phone as well, then back towards the building. This is certainly the address. I frowned, looking out my own window. None of this felt right to me. Isn't this kinda shady? Henry shrugged, unbuckling his seatbelt. Don't worry, Tom. I'm sure there's an explanation. Maybe it's just a good halfway point between us and Warren? I sighed, unbuckling my own seatbelt. Warren didn't seem like the type of guy to go out of his way to make someone else's life easier. Yeah, maybe. Come on, he said, opening the passenger side door and stepping out into the grass. I shut my own door behind me, briefly reviewing my surroundings. There was another building across the street, a small wooden house. Other than that, there were no other buildings on this part of the road. I stepped around to the front of my car, Henry appearing to my right. You ready? I asked. Let's just go, Henry said, walking towards the front door of the building. As we approached, I became increasingly aware of a sound coming from inside the building. It sounded as if it were some kind of machine. Henry knocked on the front door, and the two of us stood in silence waiting for a response. Nothing. I frowned, sharing a look with Henry before knocking myself, louder than before. We were met with no response once again. I looked over my shoulder, feeling uneasy. I sighed and stepped forward, pushing the front door open. Henry started to object, but realized quickly that this was probably our best bet. I stepped inside, the sound of machinery louder than before. I began to walk deeper into the building, listening for the direction of the noises. I turned the corner and was met with a large room. Tools and machinery littered the entire room. A workbench sat against the wall to my left. A large hunting knife was stuck in the center of the table. In the center of the room stood a man feeding a piece of wood into a table saw. I looked back to Henry, who had finally shown signs of being uncomfortable. I turned back to the man. Excuse me? The man did not hear me, so I took a step forward. Excuse me, sir? The man turned to me, shutting off the machine. Who the hell are you? The man shouted, tensing up. I froze, taken by surprise. We have a delivery for you, I said, gesturing to Henry, who held up the package. The man seemed to relax. Oh, what are you, new or something? I nodded. Just hired yesterday. Yeah. I see, he said, walking toward us. I prepared to continue the conversation, but the man walked past, removing the gloves from his hands. I turned, clearing my throat. I assume you're Warren, then? The man glanced at me, sighing. Yes, that would be me, he said, wiping his face off with a towel. I nodded, noting Henry's silence. What is this place? Do you live here? Warren remained silent, staring at me for a few seconds as he continued to clean himself. No, he finally said, shaking his head in annoyance. I live across the street. I make furniture, kid. I nodded once more, feeling relief. Oh. Yeah, he said, stepping towards us. So, my packages? I turned to Henry, who hesitated slightly before stepping forward, holding the packages out to Warren. Warren took the box and envelope in his rough hands, stepping back towards his workbench. He set the packages down, fumbling through the bag that sat on top of it. David's got, two of you guys delivering now, does he? Isn't one enough to do the job? I considered responding, but figured it was for the best that I didn't. Warren reached into his bag one last time, pulling out a small white envelope. He walked back toward us, handing me the envelope. There's your money. Don't bother counting. It's the right amount, he said. I nodded, looking quickly into the envelope. I nearly dropped it. Shock filling my body. There were dozens of bills in the envelope, all emblazoned with a large 100 in the top corner. Warren scuffed, heading back to his workbench. Never seen that much money before? All I could do was hum in agreement. Stuffing the envelope into my pocket. Do me a favor, and thank David for me, he said, picking up the yellow envelope. I've been waiting for this crap all week, he said, frowning. Something about Warren's face sent fear throughout my body. He studied the envelope, playing with the flap near the top. Did you open this? He asked, finally turning to me. I nearly fainted. No, I stammered, almost not getting a single word out. Warren looked back towards the box, which now obviously stood out as being tampered with. Rage was building in his eyes. You're freaking lying. I swear, we didn't touch anything, I said, holding up my hands. You jerk, Warren said, setting down the packages and stepping toward us. Did you watch my tape? I shook my head quickly. No, please, I swear. David promised that my orders would stay private, he said, pacing back and forth. I took a step backwards. Warren. Warren's eyes darted from me to Henry. And what the hell are you doing? I looked at my friend, who now stood with his phone in his hands. He dropped his hand to the side. Nothing. Warren stopped moving, shock on his face. Did you just call the police? Henry looked at me, fear in his eyes. No, I didn't. You have to believe me. I'm not going to frickin' jail, he shouted, stepping back to the workbench and gripping the handle of his hunting knife. I took that moment to start running. I could hear Henry's footsteps directly behind me as I ran away from Warren. Warren swore behind me as I sprinted into the building, suddenly unaware of where I was. Where the hell do we go? Henry ran past me, turning the corner to our right. I swore under my breath and followed Henry. We ran for a minute or two before I checked over my shoulder. Warren wasn't there. Where the hell is he? Henry stopped, his hands on his knees. I don't freaking know, man. We need to go, he whispered. You don't have to tell me, I said, looking around the next corner. The building was massive. It looked as if it could have been an old office building. Come on, I said, walking quietly down the hallway. The two of us snuck through the halls, praying that we'd find the right door. Henry stayed behind me, watching almost constantly behind us as we moved through the building. I turned a corner impatiently, instantly regretting it. The front entrance sat at the end of the hallway, a large man standing in front of it, a knife in his hand. There you are, you little freak, he called, sprinting towards us. I spun on my heel, nearly tripping as I sprinted back down the way we had come. I took a left, running towards what looked like to be a dead end. I looked over my shoulder, seeing Henry running down the other hallway. Damn it, I spat under my breath. I pulled open the door nearest to me, stepping inside and shutting it closed, softly behind. From the brief view I had of the room before closing the door, I could tell I was in what used to be a closet. I sat in silence for a few moments, not sure of what my plan even was. I squeezed my eyes shut when my worst fear came true. Where the hell are you, kid? Warren called, seemingly at the end of the hallway. I saw you come this way. You can't hide forever. I could feel my breathing speed up. The sound of a door being ripped open almost caused me to give away my hiding place. Somewhere deep inside of me, I actually believed I could stay hidden. The closer door ripped open, and Warren's blade shot in. I yelled in shock. Warren's free hand grabbed me by the shirt. I was yanked into the hallway, my body fumbling straight into the wall, across from the closet. Warren was stronger than he looked. A sharp stinging in my arm caused me to turn, confused. A red gash was now in my left upper arm. Blood seeped through the wound, staining my t-shirt. Warren, please! Warren's eyes may as well have been on fire. Your guts are about to be on the freaking floor. Warren, a voice said from the end of the hallway. Warren spun, his fist gripping the knife harder. David held up his hands. Step away, Warren. Warren groaned loudly. These damn kids looked at my tape, David, he said, pointing to me with his knife. You promised me privacy. David didn't falter. Step away now, he said, or our deal is off. Warren stammered, ready to protest, but swore instead. He spun, stepping over me. You're damn lucky your daddy showed up, kid, he said, spitting on me. I remained on the floor for several seconds, my brain attempting and failing to comprehend what had just happened. I returned to the present when David's hand appeared in front of me. I hadn't noticed Henry until now. He stood behind David as the man helped me to stand. Are you all right, Thomas? I'm sorry, David, I said, not answering his question. David sighed, turning to Henry. What did I tell you? You both completely disobeyed my orders. Henry looked uncomfortable. I spoke, beginning to feel anger surge through me. You know, David, we wouldn't have wanted to look in the box so bad if you just told us what the hell we were delivering. David gave me a look that instantly told me my choice of tone wasn't going to be accepted. Thomas, some things are better left unsaid. I didn't hide my feelings. What does that even mean? What the hell are we selling these people? Why did he give me so much money, David? David took a step away, mumbling to himself and rubbing his chin. Henry gave me a look, a mixture of confusion and fear in his eyes. At least I now knew who he'd been talking to on the phone. David finally turned back to us, a new look in his eyes. Look, I was gonna wait before doing this, but you two are too important to hide from for too long, he said, holding up his hands. I frowned, shaking my head. What are you talking about? There is more to this company than you know, he said, giving us a look that could almost tear through us. I was going to introduce you to the family when I felt more confident, but your curiosity and confidence reminds me of my own. I held my hand up to my wound, only now remembering it was there. David cleared his throat. Where's the money, Thomas? I hesitated for a moment before reaching into my pocket, handing it to David. He reached in, fumbling through the bills before pulling out 2 of them. He held one out to each of us. Take the rest of the day off and clean that wound up, he added, beginning to walk towards the front door. Come in tomorrow at 7. I have something I need to show you two. I write to you now from my apartment. Lily hasn't come home yet. I'm not sure what I'm going to tell her when she gets here. Everything inside of me is telling me not to go to work tomorrow. But I feel like I have to. David was right after all. The curiosity in me was growing. I'm fearing the worst here. Should I contact the police? Would they even believe me at this point? If any of you have something you think I should ask David tomorrow, please let me know. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to sleep tonight, but I feel like I'm going to need it. Wish me luck.